Hey Bailey, I wanted to leave you some feedback on Essay 2. As a whole, I think it's working quite well. You have a strong thesis here, an excellent blend of analysis and description. It feels really natural how you pivot back and forth between your analysis and description in these sections. Um, that I was really impressed with the writing in this whole area. It works quite well, and I also like that you're saying that the image is can be analyzed right, essentially to make social commentary about the pressure that the fashion industry places on women. Um, and I think, yeah, I do think that this ad does indeed need to be interrogated, and I think that you have interrogated it correctly. There's just a couple of things here and there that I want to discuss with you. So thank you so much for adding your commas and your complex sentences. I remember asking for that in your rough draft. So I'm always excited to see revisions made between the two drafts. So I really appreciate that that's there. I do want to talk to you about informal point of view. I don't know if we talked about this in your previous draft. So I remember thinking, I remember going back and forth about talking to you about your second person point of view. And if I didn't bring it up, I think I decided to leave it alone because this seems like uh, it seems like here you're referring to the messages that women constantly receive, not only from their peers, right, but also from social media, fashion magazines, just basically everywhere, right? Women are constantly bombarded about their appearance. And so typically you don't want to use second person you in professional writing because it's too informal. It's too close to everyday speech. But I could see rhetorically what you were doing here, so I decided to leave you alone. However, in the thesis statement, and here, I think that you need to make some revisions here. You need to make some changes. So remember, when we first talked about thesis statements, we always say that they are always objective in tone, meaning that we do our best to avoid I think or I believe statements, along with we do our best to say you in the thesis statement. And that's because it becomes too informal. And so what I want you to do in these areas is think about who you really mean here. And I think who you mean is women or young women. So think about how this might sound. The Perfect Body advertisement that was put out a few years ago by the popular underwear company Victoria's Secret. Oh, make sure you get Victoria's in here, right? Conveys a questionable message that in order to be beautiful, women must have it looks like you have a typo here too, must have the perfect body, right? And you do a great job of talking about the audience specifically here, but just make sure that you do the editing after your like rhetorical messaging there. I caught some comma splices here and there in your paper. I can't remember exactly where they're at as I'm scrolling through. If I catch one, I'll point it out to you. But if and when you revise, make sure that you give this a read for comma splices. This threw me off. I think what you're trying to say is that all the bodies are essentially the same, even though there's multiple models in there. But I wasn't quite sure what this little sentence fragment here is doing. So I do think this right here needs a little bit of development. Make sure also that you edit for contractions in professional writing. You want to avoid them, so spell this out like does not. And I can't remember if they're throughout the paper or not beyond that, but make sure that you give a read for them. This paragraph I really liked, except for the opening sentence threw me off. So you make it sound like you're going to just talk about makeup in this paragraph, but you really go into describing not only the women's features, but also their physical demeanor and positions. So I think rewriting a clearer key idea here a clearer topic sentence that more clearly captures what you're doing in this entire paragraph would be useful here. Because this suggests that you're just talking about makeup, but you're not. Like, you're really getting into describing all parts of the women here. I do think that you are interpreting it correctly, and I do think that you are right to critique it the way that you are. I might ask you, if you revise this, to think about this a little more critically. I have the tendency to think that actually the company wanted to, at least at the point when this ad came out, that actually the company wanted to suggest the idea that if you buy the underwear, you will have the perfect body. I do indeed believe that this company intended to let all of us who are not perfect feel bad. I think that the company intended to say, you are not perfect, you are not the ideal, and therefore you need to reach the ideal. And one way you could reach the ideal is by buying this underwear. I do think this ad is meant to attack women's self-esteem. I do think that you're right that Victoria's Secret has begun diversifying its models, meaning that they are including plus size women. They're doing more to include women of color, and I believe for the very first time that they have included a transgender model, at least on their runway show. That only happened after public pressure, right? So I think the company wants to maintain this image of quote unquote perfection. And they want people to buy into that idea of perfection, so they keep spending money, right? That's how we keep consumers. So I'm going to quibble with you with this idea. And if you come back and look at this paper again, dig into this a little more. I would ask you to think just a little bit more deeply there. But I'm happy with the direction that you took this in, and you did indeed tip your hat to Victoria's Secret for trying to make the right choices. And I'm with you here, right? And we are trying to do that. And I would argue that it's only through, regular folk like you and me and the other people that put pressure on companies or call them out when their advertisement is sends harmful messages. We're the ones that keep them accountable. So overall, I think it's working well. There's just a little bit here and there that you could do for revision. All right, thanks, Bailey, and let me know if you have questions.